God's children ought to always have a strong desire to do the things of God, to serve. It's amazing when you come in a congregation, you ask, no matter how many there are or how few, whether 20 or 2,000, and you say, we need someone to do such and such a thing, and you spend 10 minutes, and they're there looking at you. It's a shame. They ought to be jumping up, even the people of the Old Testament. When Moses called them and said, look, you're going to give an offering for the building of the tabernacle. They gave so much, according to the Bible, that Moses had to give an instruction to stop them from giving more offerings. Those are people that didn't even have the kind of salvation that we have. Says anyone here, we just need 5 people, give 10,000. That's when they sit down. You look at certain things, they're dusty. You come in on Wednesday, they're dusty. You come in on Sunday, the same thing. Doesn't that tell you something? Instead of saying, who is responsible for this thing? That's God opening a door of blessing for you. Look, anything you do in the house of God turns out to be a blessing to you. See, how does it bless you? It's not that, he tells you, don't worry, heaven is your home. That's not just it. There are things you desire in this life. See, there are certain things that you need. Sometimes there are even things you don't realize. And God begins to open doors of blessings for your life because of that thing that you need. He doesn't have to come up and say, Pastor, I want to volunteer myself to be cleaning the chairs now. He doesn't even have to say that. Let me ask you a question. We are all serving God here. Every one of us. This is not my church. And it's not somebody's church. It's God's church. And for the sake of organization, we have people in one place or the other. But we're all answerable to God the same way. You don't need somebody to come and say thank you. I don't, as a pastor, I don't have to come and tell you, thank you, you did a good job. You do it as unto the Lord. Whatever you do for the Lord, really, when you do it, it's for you. Because the blessing is going to turn to you. God's going to bless you for it. Some people, there are people who have never experienced a miracle in their lives. You know that? There are people. If you ask them, have you ever received a miracle? They say, yeah. They say, what kind? Say, well, I thank God he woke me up this morning. That's not a miracle. Every dog you find woke up that day. That's the normal process of life. What is a miracle? It's a supernatural intervention into the natural realm. Some have never had a divine thing happen, a divine intervention in their lives that they can really talk about. Serving God brings to you opportunities for miracles, promotes you. When I say it promotes you, I'm talking now of God taking your name forward. People begin to talk about you, not just because they are seeing what you are doing. Oh, that could be a part of it, but not necessarily, because God begins to remind them of you. The Bible talks about a book of remembrance in the presence of God that has been written concerning people. And that book of remembrance is not a book that's going to be opened on the last day. No, that book is working now. God goes through that book now. And from time to time you find yourself as, you're on God's top list to be blessed. Hallelujah. And miracles just begin to happen. You begin to have favor in the sight of men. You begin to have favor everywhere you go. You want to open doors of favor for yourself. Begin to do things in the house of God that are valuable. To serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. Become needed. Make yourself indispensable. In a large church like this, one can think it's a difficult thing to become so involved and so needed. But I want you to think about the man David. When he was anointed king, Israel didn't know it. The prophet came to his father's house and anointed a young man. And the only ones who knew it were those at home. At this particular time, he was still taking care of the sheep. He couldn't leave that job. That was the job at home. He wasn't being paid for it. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. He returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And David rose up early in the morning. His father had sent him. So he rose up early in the morning and left the sheep with a keeper, and took and went as Jesse had commanded him. He was smart enough to leave the sheep with a keeper. That shows you the sense of responsibility that he had from that humble beginning. He had begun to learn how to be a leader. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. Notice that. Sometimes, you may rent chairs and bring them in. and take them out and hold a meeting outside there, and then you get up and go home. Nobody cares how they come back in here. That's not a mark of leadership. We're talking about things that bring promotion in the house of God. The very fact that you didn't think about it is the problem. This is why it didn't cross my mind. Why didn't it cross your mind? That's the trouble. That's the trouble with your mind. That you don't get the right things when it ought to. It's just like you're taking an exam and the answer didn't cross your mind. If it doesn't cross your mind, you get 0. If your mind was developed, it will cross your mind. If your mind was disciplined, it will cross your mind.
Saint Andrew the Heavenly.